Any advice on how to avoid water from getting into the housing of my Onzen or Spa Boy cell?
Hi there, this is John Keirstead from Arctic Spas, coming at you with another video. Today I wanted to answer a question that I saw online. When I'm on there in those various forums and stuff, people are often bringing up some scenarios that we don't necessarily talk about because it's not a typical scenario. So it involves the niche of well, in this case, an Onzen system. So we have the Spa Boy system, we have the Onzen system, and down in the bottom of the footwell area of the spa, this is installed in the wall, and then we have the electrode, this electrode that gets screwed into this, right? And so you've seen lots of photos and video of this, and it's the thing that kind of looks like it's smoking and stuff, right? So what I wanted to discuss is there was a couple of questions. First of all, when you look at this is a housing within a housing. Okay, so this part is designed so that when this is in here and screwed in here, this is all waterproof. If it's in properly in the set screw you see there's a set screw right there. It has to be aligned up and in the proper spot, and I'll go into that a little bit more in detail. But this is normally installed, and you see how this is? This is where the shell of the spa would be, right? So it gets tightened in, so they drill a hole, this gets put in, this gets power from the spa pack, the equipment of the spa. The shell is here, and then this is in the footwell of the spa. And so we did this because it's got a length, because we wanted to be able to change this piece without having to drain your water, because sometimes this will fail, but you maybe just put your water in and it failed after a few months or whatever, or it's the middle of winter and you don't really want to drain and fill your spa just so you can change this. And in the old days, whenever this failed, we used to have to drain the spa to change it, right? So by doing this, you didn't have to do that. So once this is installed, and we'll assume that the shell is in here and this is nice and tight, right? This goes in here. Now the question actually came when the person took this out, being very careful not to get water in here. If you can get water in there is okay, right? Because this is waterproof. But what you can't do is you can't get water in this piece here. So that's why we bring this up out of the shell. And so there's a little elastic that holds this. And I'll just... Okay, that makes this nice and long. So this can reach up right out of the top of the water. And you've seen other videos where I've showed how to change this and stuff. But while he was doing this, they watched the video, and while they were doing this, they realized inside this piece here, he could hear water. He's like, hey, there's water in this thing. And he's right. And what happens is I think the water is getting in through this seam here. Okay, the water is getting in through there. And this fills up with water. Now, there is a second possibility. It could be getting the water from the other side. And if it's getting the water from the other side, that's a real problem. And by the way, if it fills up with water from this side, this piece is still relatively waterproof. I mean, there is one point where at the very bottom here, if somehow that water can get down to that thread, but I don't think it can, because if you look, this is all buried in epoxy, right? This is all buried in epoxy, so that whole back end is sealed. So if there's water in this, don't worry about it. I also believe that the water can come in through the set screw, right? So there's been people that when they go to put this set screw in, they actually don't align this properly. So this is designed so that when you thread this in, right, you thread this in, it goes to a certain point, and you got to know, right, it gets tighter and tighter, and then sometimes people stop here. Now if I push this screw, it's actually going to lift this up, and they'll create a space there, and the water can go down in. And they think they've got the set screw, and it's actually hard to line up. So I usually mark the outside of this piece. I actually scratch it, and again, I mentioned that in the other video when I'm repairing or replacing these. I just mark it. So what you can do is if you look, here's your hole for the screw, right? That's where the set screw is. I just mark this with usually just a little razor knife or the screwdriver. I notch a little notch there so that when I screw this in, I can line that up with the screw, right? So then it screws in, and then I can be sure this is fixed. And why do we have this set screw? Well, it's so that when people are in there, they don't accidentally unwind it. You never know. People might play around with this, and the whole thing that we're trying to prevent is this connection here and here. These two connections, they have to be waterproof, right? You can't let water get into the inside of this because the moisture will cause this to corrode. And I've seen it where the two pieces actually corrode together. When you pull this out, all the insides of the receiver, the female end of this ends up being pulled out along with this, and then both pieces are wrecked. The issue is that if I wreck this piece, there's no easy way to cut this and splice this because this has to be a waterproof connection. I suppose you could probably do that. There's probably a way to do it, but it's pretty complicated. In most cases, what ends up happening is we have to replace this housing. And that's not always an easy job because this is often positioned very low in the spa, in the footwell area of the spa. And, you know, depending on the installation, the person's, you know, we take the doors off and we have access, but this is quite a reach underneath there. And we used to actually plastic weld this, like we plastic weld the other things, making it so that you can, when you do it with jets and stuff, it's very easy to repair leaks and things. But plastic weld is, while we can get it out, is very difficult to get out. We have to get in there with heat guns and things like that. It's not so easy. So we typically silicone this fixture the same as we do with lights, because lights are clear, and the plastic weld doesn't look nice with a clear fitting. So this is silicone. So if you get water into this thing, you're going to end up having to replace this whole niche. And that's not covered under warranty. It's specifically excluded from warranty. That's why we make it so you can bring this thing up out of the water and change it. So I tell people always have a towel or something, you know, small hand towel and stuff available so that when you take this up out of the water, you dry it, really dry it off, you know, turn this thing upside down and then take it out this way, right? So that if there was any water kind of in here or that, it will drip. And if there was any water in this thing, which the poster had mentioned, I don't want it to drip out of that set screw hole and leak onto the inside here, right? So keep this dry. You literally can put like a piece of paper towel in here and stuff while you're working with this. You know, you take the old one out, put a piece of paper towel in there, get the new one. The new ones come, they're already inside here. You see there's kind of a goop on them. They already have a lubricant to prevent water ingress and to make sure that this is going to seal. And there's a gasket here that seals up against this. And then you just make sure that when you turn this in, make sure you're not cross-threading, right? So you back it, make sure it's not cross-threading. It should go in fairly easily. And then what happens is it gets further down, it's going to start compressing that gasket. And so you got to push to do that, right? And then you want to make sure that you line it right up to where the set screw can go in. And you use your, I believe this is just a Phillips, Phillips head. You screw that in. And then you can wind this back up and put it in the water. But the question was, do I have to worry about the water in this piece here? Typically you don't, right? Just make sure you don't get water on the inside. I'm John Keirstead for Arctic Spas. Thanks for watching the video.